Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Inside Politics on KTN News. Now, an interdenominational prayer meeting in the county of Murang'a that was said to be attended by Deputy President William Ruto was cancelled. It was the second time it was being cancelled. Another one that was set for the 27th of April was also cancelled. Part of the political leadership in Murang'a was opposed to the meeting, saying it was going to be a political rally. Of course, the divide between Kieleweke and Tanga coming to the fore. A lot of some pundits, insiders saying the meeting was postponed so that it does not have a bad, there's no bad blood inside the Jubilee Party, so that the DP does not appear to be upstaging the president, who is the regional kingpin. They were saying, Dismas, let me come to you. What do you read in this?
Ben, if you...
Was it done amicably, or is this some more trouble that is simmering?
Well, Ben, if you visit a number of restaurants in Nairobi, and I'm sure you do, given your upbringing, you will notice we are getting more attractive waiters and waitresses. And in economics, a friend of mine called Andrew Simiu told me there's a concept called the hot waitress index. That when you get more attractive people, I don't know the definition of attractive, and I know today is Mother's Day, but when you get more attractive people getting those waiting jobs, then it means the economy is doing poorly. Now, when the economy is doing poorly, you do not expect politicians to focus on winning elections in 2022. Right now, Murang'a is bleeding. What one would have expected is that all our elected leaders, be it in the Senate or the National Assembly, would be working on growing the economy. But now there is part of Kenya, I understand they are referred to as a Tanga squad, who are ignoring President Kenyatta's instructions that let's focus on building the economy. If our Kenyatta wouldn't allow that kind of a meeting to take place, either by, by covert or overt means, I will ensure the meeting does not take place.
Why?
I mean, right now, we are bleeding. People are sliding into depression, not because they've got a lot of money, but they can't afford a meal. People are facing foreclosures. They're being thrown out of their houses. Entrepreneurs have not been paid. Those are the issues affecting the economy. So for the deputy president to say that we don't want change in Kenya, change that is going to catalyze the economy. I mean, he's been deputy president for 7 years, and we are still bleeding. There's a food crisis. We're about to import maize. Never mind at his backyard, there is maize which is supposed to be bought. But we are going to give some cartels a leeway to bring maize. Why do you want to disobey the president? That meeting, in my view, its primary intention was to provoke President Kenyatta and tell him that you've lost it, now you've become a lame duck president. I wouldn't allow that meeting to take place, and any reasonable and rational politician in Kenya should focus on us building the economy, not doing those side shows. But in the middle of his vacation, understand he said that he's missing in action, the president has decided to demonstrate his power by flexing his muscles a little bit. And you recall a few days ago, people said that he had ignored part of his community. In an act that shocked every Kenyan, which is not consistent with Article 10 and Chapter 6, the president made appointments to parastatal, the chairman and the directors. Up to, rather more than 50% of them, all of them are from Kiambu, from Murang'a, from Nyeri. Now, those are the people I understand who are supposed to go and manage the Tanga squad. Now, instead of the president distributing those positions to reflect the face of Kenya, he is fighting his wars with the deputy president by concentrating national resources in one part of the world.
So what you're saying, in effect, is that succession politics, you can't ignore succession politics.
No. You ignore succession.
There are better things to worry about for Kenyans.
You ignore succession politics at your own peril. Because William Samoei Ruto is not an ordinary deputy president. He's probably the most powerful deputy president or vice president the entire world will ever know. Because the next person who is going to become the deputy president of Kenya will not have as much power as this. That's why President Kenyatta becomes nervous. He now wants President Kenyatta to have a bloody nose. And this is unacceptable.
Husband, what is your take on this?
I think we live in a very liberal society, and there are things that are very unnatural if you do. You cannot stop politicians from politicking. I mean, if they decide to go and politic at their own advantage, it is because they are good. If they go and politic to their self-destruction, it's their choice. I do not subscribe to this belief that you can stop politicians from doing what they are meant to do. Politics is about debates on distribution of resources in the society. So if a politician wants to visit Murang'a, Migori, or wherever, my understanding is they are going to address those issues. if somebody has contrary information to what politicians want to do in a certain space, they need to make that information public. And I think there's this trend of the charts being drawn into a fight that is political. Politicians are in the business of doing politics, and what we need as society is to understand what these people stand for. If the deputy president was going to central Kenya, the people of central Kenya need to be given an opportunity to understand the deputy president. You cannot all of a sudden say that places are going to be marginal, to be demarcated and compartmentalized, and people will say that, oh, you cannot scramble for. People scramble on issues, and I think we need to be serious about allowing issues to contend in the public domain. If there is an issue that is contrary to the issues that the deputy president is addressing, somebody else can also go to central and articulate their issues, and it is the people of central Kenya to decide. There is a risk in trying to muzzle the democratic space that we have, and we saw it in the last couple of by-elections when Jubilee withdrew their candidate from Ugenya, when Jubilee withdrew their candidate from Embakasi South. I think we are denying the elected the opportunity to understand their politicians. And from where I see it, no one needs to be nervous unless you're doing the wrong thing.
All right. Succession politics versus legacy. That is what it seems to be, Jerotich. It's unstoppable, isn't it?
Well, it is unstoppable so long as we, the captive audience, continue to enjoy and participate in the drama that is Kieleweke and Tangatanga. So we have allowed ourselves to be sucked into the discussion. We have painted ourselves into a corner that perhaps we don't want to be in. We have stopped our conversation from moving away from the realms of this particular regime to what might be a good option in 2022. Moreover, this is 2019 and we're discussing 2022. As Dismas is saying, we are poor, we are struggling. A billion has how many zeros? 9. A trillion has 12. Quadrillion has 15. We're about to get there, I'm sure, in due course, in terms of the monies that we owe. And yet, as Kenyans, we're still back to the negative ethnicity that is peddled and perpetuated by the Tangatanga and Kieleweke group. And I'm saying we are 50 million Kenyans, and there's nobody who can step forward and say, actually, we need to change the conversation. Actually, we need to look at leadership that is servant-oriented. And I will always talk about that kind of leadership, Ben. So for me, I look at Tangatanga and say, oh, now you're annoyed because Kieleweke seems to be reneging on its promise that in 2022, the deputy president will become president, because it's this dynastic hustler musical chairs, round and round and round, that it goes from a Kikuyu to a Kalenjin to a Kikuyu to a Kalenjin forever and ever. When are we going to say ourselves as Kenyans, actually, we're tired of this dialogue? Every time somebody talks to you about Tangatanga, talk about the economy, talk about your pocketbook, talk about the fact that you cannot afford basic commodities, and they should stop disturbing us with that. Do you remember during Kibaki's time that there was even the whole Kalonzo Tosha discussion? People take their word back every time in politics. So for Tangatanga to be sitting around thinking that it is owed anything is really fallacious as far as I'm concerned. But I always bring it back to the Kenyan. What is happening with me every day? And what does Tangatanga and Kieleweke have to do with my abilities to sustain myself and my family for generations to come?
Kipchumba, how possible is it for Kenyans to learn and separate the politics from the issues and learn to communicate that to the political class?
Ben, I think we have continuously praised hypocrisy. One thing is this, Ben, we cannot sit here and pontificate a position that Mora and my sister in the village cannot align themselves to. Every time you see a politician standing somewhere, or when an entourage stops somewhere, there'll be Kenyans more than 1,000 listening. What does that mean? It means that Kenyans have a higher appetite for politics more than any other thing. And this notion, the conditioning that we have continuously conditioned ourselves, that we must for a moment stop to do something. Kenyans are a funny lot. We must accept them as they are. Today, preachers will be preaching in all the churches in this country. There will be crusades every weekend. Have we ever said that the economy is not growing because we are having crusades? No, we need to have a honest discussion. And that discussion is this. When did we equate Kieleweke to President Uhuru Kenyatta? And when did we equate Tangatanga to William Ruto? That is where we begin. Two, I am a pro-strong parties person. I don't believe that Jubilee should die There is no benefit to be gained there. And the other thing that you must look at it, when we have strong political parties, we will move from discussing this tribe against the other tribe to discussing this idea against that idea. And one thing that, even as we discuss the Kieleweke and Tangatanga politics, one thing that you must give those two teams, as amorphous as they are, at least there is no politics of tribalism. In each part, in Kieleweke there are as many Kalenjins as there in this side, and in Tangatanga there are as many Kikuyus as on the other side. That is the only positive thing. Right. But the other thing that also we must shy away, when members of parliament in their individual capacity organize an event and approach you, Ben, we cannot say that is Ben's event. Okay. I have seen communication from David Mugonyi distancing the office of the deputy president from that event. Why don't we take that as the communication?
He was to be the chief guest, though.
But the officer said he had other commitments somewhere. So
do you think the insiders in Jubilee should have cancelled the event for whatever reason? Because it's all very blurry.
Looking at it from a political strategy point of view, I'll tell you.
Do you think it was meant to make the president a lame duck president?
Let me tell you, from a political strategy point of view, there is allowing that event to happen was a political blunder to Uhuru Kenyatta, because after that, if it was a prayer rally, perceived to be a prayer rally, if politics come to it, it would have turned into a royalty pledge kind of a rally, where the more people you have, and that will have made the president nervous. And then the other thing also that it will have caused is this: it will have marked the beginning of 2022 politics, and the governors who are retiring will have started jostling for positions of I want to be the deputy or this, and now those infights, we might have ended up not concentrating in the work that we have. And we know Kenyans are a very funny lot. They can't walk and chew gum.
So many meetings will be cancelled?
No, in terms of, we were asking a question from a political point of view.
Okay, yes.
But now, progressively, we must also state something.
Yes, please.
It is, let me just finish. It is sad that we have a constitution that is miles ahead from where Kenyans are. Going forward, Ben, we must allow these meetings to happen so that Kenyans can begin as early as now to interrogate when we talk about supporting Ben. What does Ben think about fish farming? Right. What does that gentleman, the man from Mosocho, think about economy in its full perspective?
Good point.
There's not a single member of either the Kieleweke team or Tangatanga who are not being given front row seats in churches are going to discuss fish farming. All of them are discussing 2022. We cannot ignore those two things. And right now, there's tension at the National Assembly because folks aligned to Tangatanga want to recruit their members. The other ones aligned to Kieleweke want to recruit their members. And there's nobody talking about the cost of unga. And you know, it's very easy. When you look at the trends today, I'll not be surprised that in the next 6 months, the cost of fuel is going to go to 200. And the cost of unga will go to 300. Now, these Kieleweke guys and these Tangatanga guys have got a blank check to do politics. But let them do politics which is going to build the nation, which is going to work on Mora's pockets. But if you go there, then you start saying, Muganga, tunajua 2022 mahali penye tunaenda, hii safari tumeipanga. Now, how do you start going for a safari on an empty tummy? I mean, would it not be easy if you're being told that we are going to, all of us are going to get 2022 when we have met our basic needs, that we are not afraid of buying your unga and buying your fuel?
Good point. Husband, is it possible for Kenyans, would Kenyans appreciate issue-based politics more?
I mean, Kenyans would appreciate and even benefit from issue-based politics. You know, irrespective of whichever tribe, if all Luos came together and addressed issues, I won't have a problem, even if they say we are Luos, so long as they're addressing issues. But if you have a concoction of people from different tribes and you're not addressing issues, there's nothing you're going to celebrate there. But I think for me, the biggest problem is not politicians. There's no way you're going to prescribe what politicians are going to do. They're going to do politics. But if you go back to the last general election, the two elections that we had, a number of groups from the economic class, from different associations, even Ababu Namwamba was chairing one called Association of Kenyan Professionals. He was looking for a position he got. That group is non-existent now. Now, all these groups, association of many things, let me not mention names, they came out and say that the elections were free and fair. Everything is okay, we move on. Where are these groups? These are the economic groups. These are the groups that should be talking about the price of unga is going to go up. so that they orient the public to start looking at politicians against substantive issues. But you are not going to expect a member of parliament who was elected because he gave 200 to many people or opened his home and people are coming to eat to start addressing economic issues. Civil society, the many people who made noise and they were aligned to different political parties,
right.
Where are they? If the economy is doing poorly, why can they rein in? Why don't we hear their voices? I think we need to stop this idea of expecting too much from politics, from politicians, and then when politicians are being elected, we have so many busybodies and NGOs that are giving us a lot of information that we don't need. We need that information now. We need economists to come together. We need the Association of Kenyan Manufacturers to come together.
Right.
We need private sector to tell us what exactly is going wrong so that they set the agenda that politicians then will be attending to.
Well, Ben, let's be fair to the Catholic Church. For the first time, they've woken up from a deep slumber, and I'm Catholic, so these are my religious leaders. But they've woken up and issued an episcopal letter warning Kenyans and warning our leadership that if you are not
the
careful,
nation is doomed.
There's going to be a revolution.
All right.
And I'd like them to go the extra mile, the Philippines way. There was a Cardinal Sin. His name is Sin, but he was not a sinner. Cardinal Sin. Let now the Catholic Church stand up and look at President Kenyatta in the eye and Raila Odinga and Ruto and tell them we want this economy to grow. This member of Kieleweke and Tanga, Kenyans are sick and tired.
Don't tell me anything about 2022 elections until that famous IBC server is opened. We are setting ourselves up once again to be duped, to be mismanaged with wrong voter registers, with cooked figures, with servers, and the same company is actually doing our Huduma tech. So for me, we're even talking about something that we have no way on earth of telling that it will be any less flawed than the elections that just came to an end. And I want to disagree with my brother here and say that Tanga and Kieleweke are ethnically balanced. What is the ethnic balance when it's just Kikuyus and Kalenjins, and that there's a mix of Kikuyus here and a mix of Kalenjins here? At the end of the day, we need to break the narrative, because show me that millionaire somewhere in the middle of Aror who has benefited from being a Kalenjin, or that person in Murang'a who has lived in penury their whole lives who's benefited from being a Kikuyu. It is still the 8,300 Kenyans who are not all Kalenjin and Kikuyu who control this country. So this business of saying we have an ethnic balance, we don't. This story of Kieleweke and Tanga should come to an end. They should stop wasting our time, and if they are our elected legislators and not rigged in, they should focus on our development and not on politicking for 2022.
All right, so the scramble for Central Kenya will continue, definitely. We will see what, in fact, will be happening inside that Jubilee House, away from politics and into matters that are more serious and happening in this country, to the county of Marsabit. The security lapse in North Horr and other parts of Marsabit County has become a matter of national security concern, with the political class now embroiled in accusations and counter-accusations over the matter. 11 people were killed Monday in Forole over what was termed as a dispute over water resource. Ibrahim Karanja was there.
This is one of the last processes Dennis Mamo has to perform in honor of his brother, burning anger shouting through his face. At barely 15 years old, his brother was killed by tens of bullets in a terrifying massacre that has left Forole village shuttling between pain, death and hate.
Pigiwa simu nikaambia kwamba kuna masaka imefanyika. Nikauliza masaka ya nini? Kaambia kuna wazee wameita mkutano kutoka Forole center hii, na ndugu yangu sasa kulikuwa ni wachungaji wanatoka upande Eladi, wakaambiwa kwamba wale wenye wanaona militias kutoka Ethiopia.
It was an ambush. It was unexpected. It was devastating.
Sasa watoto wadogo wanazejua maneno ya vita kweli. Wanasema sie ni wazee wale tulikuwa tumesema tuwasalimu, wakakimbia hapo wasema wacha ende wasalimu. Wakaitwa hao vijana 6 pamoja, wakaambiwa kaeni hapo. Kaeni chini. Wa vijana wakakalishwa wakiwa na fimbo ya kuchunga mbuzi.
Imagine being at this village at night, then heavily armed insurgents with sophisticated weapons pounce on you. The only available security reinforcement is 200 kilometers away in Marsabit town.
We just sent our peace communities, led by very responsible, non-people, non-elders, like Dido Hoke, like Buddha Mamo, like Galgalo Rodosa, Galgalo Kafo. These people are very people whom we trust, and we have built peace with them for a long period of time. And we sent them there.
Forole is at the border between Kenya and Ethiopia. It is a 5 hours, 30 minutes rough drive from Marsabit town. Only yesterday, the 11 who were killed in the brutal massacre were laid to rest. Had they have an option, the residents here in Forole are telling me they would have moved far away from this village just to secure their lives. But since they have no other option, they have been forced to stay here for years and face these attacks that have been going on and on and on. And they feel that there has been very little done by their government to protect their lives. Numbers at this school have continued to dwindle in the past 2 days. With the sound of every single gunshot comes a new school dropout. Residents are fleeing.
Nchi ni ya serikali. Kama hao hawana haja na nchi hii, sisi pia tutatoka hapa. Tukibeba watoto wetu, wale hata tukikufa na njaa na kiu, tukufe njiani badala ya kukufa hapa.
All the resource of the government of Ethiopia is in their hands. And then that they are using the same resource to fight this the member of the public. That is what now is creating tension to all of us. And the government must give us support and give so that we can at least, this is a malicious. Let us get support from the government so that we can lead our country and we can secure our people who are living here.
The daily routine here has had a drastic change. Now, not only are the women forced to make dinner for all the men spending the night outside, the men have to eat while the sun is still up, for they know not what nightfall will come with. And as we left Forole to what we perceived to be a safer Marsabit town, I could only intercede for the worried women and children, hoping that the light of day tomorrow will come with a light of peace. Ibrahim Karanja, KTN News.
Thank you, Ibrahim. With that security issue that is seemingly perennial from way back. Jerotich, let me begin with you. What is really the issue in Marsabit, in that border area?
This is really very complex, and I see it as a case of geopolitics, national security, and failed promises. The MPs of Saku and Moyale said that those 11 elders who were killed were actually armed and they were hostile. And I think to myself, elders in their mid-60s, this is ridiculous. Is this a Gabra Borana issue? We're looking at incursions across the border from Ethiopia into Kenya. It's national security. It's about sovereignty. But yet on this side, on the Kenya side, we have leaders who are saying that those elders were actually not elders. They were actually militia. I'm yet to see those, I'm yet to receive proof as to how and why they were militia. You know, in Marsabit, which is the biggest county in Kenya, you have Sakuye, you have Burji, you have Somali, you have the Gabra, you have the Borana. Again, ethnicity and many other communities. And in this case, ethnicity is once again being weaponized. Is this really a Gabra-Borana conflict? I don't think it is. But I also remember that last year when the deputy president was in Sololo Market, he was talking about giving IDs to people. And this is cross-border, without any due diligence, I don't think, and saying, wape IDs. Meanwhile, people with IDs, like Miguna, are being deported or exiled to forcibly removed from the country against court orders. So I look at it and I say, between the 1 million Chinese coming who might end up with IDs and those at the border who are being told be given IDs and the local politicians in Marsabit turning against their own people, where do the people of Marsabit have to turn to? And if you look at it, it boils down for me to an extreme level of poverty. And of course, the northern frontier districts have been ignored for decades. In fact, it was a buffer zone, and this is why there's been a lot of ignoring of that region. Right. But when you look at the issues of poverty, and I can speak to it a little bit later on, there's a lot of wealth in Marsabit at the moment. And when you look at it, we have the Ethiopia interconnector line bringing power into Kenya. Of the 600 or so kilometers that have to do with the transmission, you have 264 kilometers actually there in Marsabit. And I ask myself the question, how come the people of Marsabit have not received their way leave compensation? Monies to the tune of 7-8 billion that could do a lot to transform the failing economy, the issues of water, the issues of basic needs. But these monies are not going there. Instead, they're being pitted against each other in a very murky cross-border situation.
But there are pundits who say very quickly because of time
yes,
that it's not so much political as the real fight about the resource of water that is very scarce.
Battles over resource are inherently and ultimately political. You cannot divorce the politics from access to water. So if it's a cross-border issue, being able to access water resources, it becomes political.
All right. This must very quickly because of time.
Well,
what's the solution here?
As Jerusich has pointed out, this is about water. And who has access to that water? Now, understand what the politicians are doing. They're inciting members of their community or their clans or their villages not to allow what they describe as outsiders to have access to water. If you don't have access to water in that part of the world, you are dead. Now, this is what you expect the Kieleweke and Tanga courts to be addressing, the resource allocation. Because if you do not address resource allocation, we are going to be dead. And you see the way those people are very emotional.
Yes.
They're beginning to ask whether or not they're in Kenya. You would expect again the government through their security machinery to respond to that. But what are they doing? They're telling us about a meeting in Central Kenya.
Very quickly, this is a perennial issue.
I mean, it is, and it's very sad that we've lost lives. I remember it's now 13 years down the lane, because in 2006 we lost Dr. Bona Godana, Honorable Milugi Kariuki, when they were actually going with other religious and technocrats to solve the problem.
Yes.
So you have 13 years of historical, neglect of this particular group of people. And for me, it's not even a question of water. Water is a scarce commodity there. It's a question of very few options, so that water becomes the only option for almost all of them in terms of meeting their daily needs. And I think it's incumbent upon the government to do something massive about providing many options for these people.
Kipchumba, this is almost becoming national security matter. Is there a solution in sight from where you sit? Very quickly.
Then anytime a Kenyan loses his life or her life, it is a national security issue, because from the onset of our constitution, we have given ourselves a constitution and we have come together to form this constitution so that Kenyans can be protected by a state. We pay taxes for that protection, and it should be a wake-up call to Matiang'i. Just because that Marsabit do not have the revenue and the resources that are there in Murang'a or Singishu or other counties in this country does not mean that they should be neglected. We want to see the country, the forces of the country doing something to that end. No, we should not lose any life at this time because of warring clans.
Thank you. You're watching Inside Politics here on KTN News. Let's take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we wind up on the broadcast. We will be expecting your calls and Skype. You can Skype us or call us with your views, your questions, comments about what we're talking about. The studio lines are scrolling on your screen right now, so prepare your lines. Have the final word. Meanwhile, the lady and gentlemen in studio will be also giving their final say on what we're discussing today. Stay with us.